the question around sales versus engineering has been a challenge for us from the start for the year that Proxis has been around. In this conversation with my group partner at YC a year ago, saying, hey, we really want to move forward on this app. Like we need to spend all our time engineering, but then we're not going to be able to sell it because we have no time. And his response, which I still really resonate with, is,
Hi there, I'm Vishesh, your host. I'm a 5-time founder and CTO. I help startups ship code, launch faster with fewer people, and turn messy ideas into working systems. Check out my work at vishesh.space. In this episode, I'm joined by Liam Collins, founder of Proxis. He has navigated the trenches of healthcare, devtools, and now enterprise AI automation. This episode reveals the iterative grind behind landing on a clear founder market fit, the infrastructure behind personalized email automation, and how AI can serve sales teams as always on intern. Hey, hi Liam. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
hey, Vishesh, pleasure to be here.
So yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about what Proxys does and how did you end up starting the company and what do you do for your customers?
For sure. So Proxis is your enterprise AI email on autopilot. So we basically handle email for outbound teams. So you can think of some of the clients that we work with will reach out to thousands of creators or businesses via cold email. Those businesses will message back with questions, and we will apply expert sales techniques and pull in all their context to answer those questions, and then basically take those customers through the whole pipeline until they become paying customers, from potential to paying customers. So that's what Proxis does on a high level. We have a lot of proprietary tech behind that to engender those workflows. And the genesis of Proxis goes way back to when I was in business school. So I was in grad school. I was building some projects, working on startups here and there, met my co-founder, and we applied to Y Combinator. And that was a big catalyst for jumping in full time onto working on Proxis. We moved to San Francisco and went through the Y Combinator program last year, and that was a phenomenal experience. Very, very worthwhile. And still, the beauty of that is carry the community well into past the batch and into your later years. So that has been an unbelievable experience for us.
All right, awesome. You didn't start with Proxys as an idea when you started YC. Did you enter YC with another idea?
That's correct. So we entered YC automating prior authorizations in healthcare. This is actually part of the reason of meeting my co-founder. We were both working on this problem independently and were introduced through a good friend of mine. And we'd gone and validated the problem through a whole lot of clinics and hospitals and decided we wanted to work on this full time. And so we partnered up and started working on prior authorizations, which was a very interesting space and still is a massive issue. We both didn't come from a background in healthcare. So we came from a background in engineering and knew that this was a really pertinent problem for a lot of our friends and family. And so decided to apply the engineering techniques that we'd learned in order to solve that problem of prior authorizations in healthcare.
And so, what made you realize that you wanted to pivot out? Was there a framework or method you used to decide it's time to move on?
So it's a tough question, and a lot of founders, I think, come up to the stage of, is this me losing motivation and I just need to work harder to continue on this path because the startup path is very difficult? Or is this a sign that I should pivot, that there's not enough market demand or something is inherently wrong in the system that we're building? For ourselves, one major issue that we encountered early on was our users were not our buyers. And so it was quite difficult to build a business model around that. And so really, we were building to folks who in clinics who were using our tools as almost like a free tool for prior authorizations. And then we were making money on the back end through. So it was quite difficult because in that sense, our users were not paying for the product themselves. So difficult feedback loops and things from that sense. Also, we didn't have the experience in healthcare to come in with. So we were leveraging other folks for their networks and we were very fortunate enough to be introduced to a lot of players in the space, and so we got in front of a lot of people who were very helpful advisors and such. And so that was helpful in building it out. Ultimately, we realized that this was a place that we could make a bigger impact in. If really what we saw was that we were trying to tailor models for a very specific use case here, and our expertise were more in changing and tailoring those models than they were in healthcare themselves. So we decided, let's focus on that. Let's go the DevTools route. Let's do a deep dive into fine tuning and distillation. And that's where we decided to build ultimately, because we knew we could help a whole lot of companies who were along any sort of verticals doing any applications, be it in healthcare, finance, government, any sort of high security and high use cases. We were able to help them through our distilled model. And that was where our expertise lay. So in the end, we decided to lean into where we found our expertise.
And so this was like the LLM distillation was another product before Proxis. So after healthcare, you moved on to the LLM distillation. What was the product called?
Right. So that was Proxis, same name. Yes, different offering there. And so what we discovered in that case, and all of these have been really healthy pivots down the line because they've each taught us something, one about our own expertise and stuff that we've got feedback from the market after releasing these products. And so in the fine tuning and distillation space, we were able to work with clients to make very custom models for them. And then later we've parlayed that expertise into our AI email sales agents, where now we go out and help sales teams and we have very customized and personalized models that we can use on a per user basis that run nightly jobs that basically become more customized and personal to that user on a nightly basis. We're able to use that from the techniques that we had on our previous ideas and iterations. So they've all laid the groundwork for the next step in the Proxis journey.
Interesting. And so you said per user, you do some sort of distillation nightly.
Yes, so we have personalization on a number of levels. So think of a sales team. Perhaps you have like 10 people on the sales team. So those 10 people would sit under one company. So we have a company level. We then have a team level where you'd have your team of 10 salespeople. You'd have your user level, which is 10 individual users under that. And those 10 individual users could have up to 20, 50 emails that they're managing themselves. You have the email level. And so we have 90 jobs that run that will basically create customization on a per user basis, can even be configured on a per email basis, such that when users send emails during the day, either they make edits to the drafts that we generate or they send emails themselves. Our models are then able to say, okay, these were the drafts we generated, the prediction we had. This was the actual sent email. And we better adjust our models to be more closely aligned with the success story of the sent email. And so those jobs run nightly so that eventually it converges into a space where sales teams can turn on automatic sending, where they're very comfortable with the mails that are being sent out. That pass a certain confidence threshold. So, hey, do we have all the information that we need that is being asked in this email? Are we sure we're not hallucinating anything? We've got all these guardrails in place that say, once you have that automated sending, we are highly confident in this email. It passes our threshold, and then it can be sent off. So that personalization comes on a per email or per user basis. We then also have company specific context and things that we basically pull in. So it cascades down from the company level, and then we get high personalization on a user level. And that's really been important for us, and the differentiators being able to have sales teams come in who each sales rep works incredibly differently. They're targeting different GMV customers, have a different sales process. We need to learn work well for each individual sales rep, and that's generally not the case. It's not consistent or uniform on a company level.
And so for people who are not from enterprise sales background, do you want to talk a little bit about why someone has 15 inboxes?
Yeah. So email is very interesting. There are once you get to a certain scale, there are a lot of issues with deliverability being flagged as spam mails or having whole inboxes being flagged as non-human like. So there are ways of configuring your email sending to come across in a very human-like and natural way, in the fact that emails are spread out throughout the day or sent at certain times. So all of these otherwise emails are flagged as sort of like bot emails. So the way a lot of sales teams that we work with manage these is by having a large number of email accounts such that they can send at a human-like pace but still achieve the same volume. And so we work with them to kind of work within that human-like email sending category.
And so I guess how high touch is your onboarding given the amount of personalization is needed currently, and how has it evolved over time?
So this is something that we have a very strong view on, which is that users shouldn't spend a ton of time configuring to a T how their emails should be sent. We have a much more passive learning system for the user. So what we do is we analyze their full Gmail history, analyzing how the sales techniques that they use, how they send mails, who they're responding to, in what kind of way, and we mimic everything from their sales techniques to their tone to the way they're sending messages in a way that they receive a personalized experience from the outset without having to configure anything. We definitely have overrides such that if a user wants to go in and say, I'm going to create a new rule to whatever it is, for example, never respond to these types of email addresses. Users are able to override that, but ideally we derive that from their activity within their inbox already. And once we initiate the Proxis client in their email inbox, we're still able to monitor their sent emails and they work in their inbox as normal until we slowly ramp up the automated sending. So we make sure that we're very aligned on the drafts that we're creating and how we're entering that sales process, and that they're very on board with how the Proxis agent is working within their systems. And once those are aligned, then we're able to roll out on sending route. So in that sense, it's a slow ramp up to make sure that users feel very confident in the emails that are being sent, but they don't have to spend a ton of time configuring these systems and writing edge case prompts and things like that. So that's been a real focus for us, is how can we make this the best user experience where it's totally hands off, and it's almost like an intern was looking over your shoulder and then taking some of the grunt work off your plate for you.
Interesting. Hopefully they are paid interns.
Yeah, exactly. Interns that work 24/7 as well.
Yeah. And so how different this is from, let's say, if someone looking at it from prior experience, how different are you guys from, let's say, an Apollo or an Instantly?
Yeah, so those sorts of platforms are fantastic for launching initial outbound campaigns, and they're definitely competitors out there as well. What we do is we're positioned more as a full sales agent, so we're almost a weapon in these sales teams' toolkit, in the sense that we can use those platforms for the initial outbound sent to thousands of people. Once they come back with responses, there's generally a lot longer of a process to converting that potential customer into a paying client. And so where Proxis comes in is we'll pull in the context from any sorts of third-party applications that we need to integrate within that company. Maybe it's your help articles from your Zendesk, your HubSpot instances to know which customers, to have metadata on those customers. So we'll integrate with all that context and use that as a means to respond to people throughout that campaign. So we basically take them through that whole funnel up until the end where we onboard them onto the platform or whatever the end goal is. And so that's really more of a full suite that Proxis offers.
Email is an interesting problem in terms of just the email use case or sales emails. What are some of the edge cases that have been interesting?
Some edge cases that have come up have been the emails that we receive come from perhaps sources we don't expect. For example, there might be someone who the sales team has spoken to in person and they reach out to the company via a different email, via their personal email instead of the company email. And so matching those records to say, okay, this is the same person that we've been speaking to. They've now come in through a different route. We need to effectively align the context that we have on those conversations already and then take that forward. So it's the inbound of when emails come in, effectively identifying who those people are and pulling in the relevant context. And that's quite difficult because it's difficult to link those addresses. Some of the edge cases that have been interesting, we've introduced sort of timely sending, so we can turn on auto sending or auto drafting for certain periods of the day. So for some of our sales team, they want to be more hands-on during the day in the beginning stages. And as soon as they log off at night, want to turn on full automated sending such that any emails that come in later or on the weekends are replied to pretty instantaneously or in a random time frame between 2 to 5 minutes to appear human-like. And the beauty of that is once those are replied to relatively immediately, it maintains the sales momentum. And that's this is a large part in closing these deals, is maintaining that momentum. So that when people reply, they'll get back to the desk the next day and be able to take over that process if they want or keep it on autopilot. But that process has been continuing. And so that's been really great, being able to introduce those timeframes where we're able to turn on auto sending or scale it back for certain times of the day.
And so, do you have users who've just put it on autopilot, and does it in the footer say sent by AI?
It does not say sent via. No, very. Do you have users who are using the autopilot, and at these stages, it's based on a confidence level. So once the autopilot is turned on, it can be adjusted by the user as to what sort of confidence they want to relay. For example, only send the emails that very closely align with the templates that we have very specific knowledge on this user. So, for example, if it comes back and someone says, I'm absolutely not interested in this process at all, please take me off the email list, we'll have templates that are usually sent for that. And so those emails will be pull in some context, align closely with the templates, and we can say, okay, we're very confident this is the sort of email that we want to send. And those will be configured for auto sending. Then teams are able to reconfigure that confidence level. So say, okay, we now have some more nuanced cases that are coming in, but we're still highly confident in the emails that Proxis is producing. Let's roll those out, and so there starts to be more and more automated sending, and that increases down the line with.
And so, you are dog fooding your own product. I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
How has the experience been, and like, are there GTM improvements you made based on the learnings from using Proxis?
It's
Yes.
been awesome. It's been great because I love being the user of my own product, in the sense that if anything is horrible, I'm going to fix it straight away. We're able to get that feedback loop really tight. And so that I'm very grateful for. What's been a challenge there is we've linked it up to our business emails, who we're not exclusively a sales team. So in a sense, they are not necessarily personal emails, but they have other emails outside of sales in that inbox. So it's been very interesting to see how the model reacts to emails that come through around hiring or fundraising or any other sorts of operations, any other sorts of like business ops that we have within our own email inboxes at Proxis. So it's been very interesting to see those use cases and how it handles on like edge cases or places where it doesn't have much context. Because for a lot of the companies we work with, they're very streamlined sales processes and usually quite similar responses that come back that are usually answered in their help desk or things like that. It's been interesting to see the models perform outside of the tasks that they've been trained on.
Also, you must be dealing with spam, or the mail provider takes care of spam for you.
Yes, so we have configurations as to, and this is something a user can also dial up and down, but we have configurations as to the kind of emails that we need responding to. And so we've gone and built proprietary tech around that to say, to catch exactly that. Hey, is this a mass email outbound that doesn't require our attention? Is this someone who's completely not interested in our product and doesn't necessitate a follow-on response? They've dropped out of the funnel. So we have all these cases for which necessitate no reply, and we've really built that in terms of sort of like a priority stack on which emails need to be replied to and which are most pressing.
So, for you, what does the cold reach out look like with Proxis?
Yeah, so we do some cold outbound. We do outbound by some outbound by personally by our own LinkedIn's. Some we do cold emails, and then a lot of those we can also overtake that process and do it on like a more personal level and overtake those inboxes. Or sometimes a lot of it will just come through as drafts, and we're able to answer a lot of the questions that come in, and then sort of use that as a base of our email to then send out. So basically what it's been really helpful for is that we are able to test our own product. In that case, the product development lifecycle is so much quicker because I'll reach out to someone. Maybe it's someone I have a lot more context on. I've met them at a conference like VidCon last week. Reach out to them via email. They'll get back to me. A draft will be in my inbox. Because I have all the context from an in-person interaction, sometimes that draft won't be fully aligned. So I'm able to go in there and edit it, and then it has that context is updated, and it can continue on in that conversation. So very helpful to be able to like close those product feedback loops from our standpoint. And to that extent, like once users actually go to a conference, they're able to upload more context that our drafts will better respond. And I guess the meta point there is a lot of sales and a lot of email infrastructure is as good as your context. So the more CRMs we're able to connect with or pull context from the organization, be it through Slack, Zendesk, we're able to better craft replies that are more suited and more accurate toward their answer. So we also have review agents to review for accuracy, performance, and go through a feedback loop. So draft a reply, and they'll say, actually, the evaluator agent says this doesn't look accurate. It doesn't appear like it's answering the question directly. Let's send it back and take it through multiple rounds until we have something that's approved by the evaluator agent. And then it goes to our confidence level agent that says, okay, that's fantastic. This is the final email that's come through. How confident are we in sending this? We have a whole lot of internal metrics on how we rank that confidence and how the user wants to configure their order sending, how strict they want it to be. And once it passes those thresholds, then it will go through.
And so you're a very small team.
We love that.
Does it like...
Very nimble.
Sorry?
It's very nimble. We love having a small team.
Yeah. You're a lean team. How do you balance between engineering and sales, and what parts of sales? Obviously the follow-ups, it seems like you've automated for yourself and others, but what parts of your sales motion is automated?
So to start with, I'd love having a small team because it means we are super nimble and are able to move quickly. I think that's the beauty of being in the stage that we're in. We want to take full advantage of that. So really enjoying being in that stage. The question around sales versus engineering has been a challenge for us from the start, for the year that Proxis has been around. This conversation with my group partner at YC a year ago, saying, hey, we really want to move forward on this app. Like, we need to spend all our time engineering, but then we're not going to be able to sell it because we have no time. And his response, which I still really resonate with, is you've just got to find the time to do both. There's no either or, and there's no outsourcing it. We very much firm believers in founder-led sales at this stage. So we basically split the time between the two. I'm very fortunate to have a team that supports me on the development front. But yes, so we're basically developing and doing outbound as well. In terms of the sales cycle, the outbound that we're doing, a lot of it just by virtue of where we are on the teams that we're selling to, a lot of it is boots on the ground, being at conferences, really relationships we have already with a lot of great companies and referrals through those companies. So a lot of it is like a very personalized process that we use just because of the teams that we're selling to.
YC has a really big network. So you probably are tapping into that, but in terms of conferences, what conferences have you found interesting?
So we went to South by Southwest earlier this year, which was fantastic because of the number of tracks that they have. So really we're able to get deep into the tech track. A lot of the businesses that we work with as well sell to either businesses or individuals in the creator economy. So it's been very helpful having creator tracks that we can go to as well. Last week was VidCon. A lot of creators that we met there, or rather businesses that sell to creators who are our clients. So really what the beauty of the company that we built is everyone has a sales team. So we're able to target a number of verticals. It's really beneficial having a lot of people in that same vertical because we know the ins and outs of that industry ourselves. So what's been helpful is diverse track of conferences, be it industry track on the tech side or the creator side. So we went to a number of conferences this year, and that's been really helpful. I think meeting people in person really moves things a lot quicker.
Yeah, once you exactly know who you want to meet, it becomes easier for sure. Yeah,
Definitely.
what are some of the things so you've done a couple of pivots, and now with this idea, what are some of the things that have not worked with this product so far? What are some of the challenges today?
Yeah, there've been some very interesting learnings as we've started building this out. One of which, before we got deep into the email sales space, deliverability we knew to be a problem. And in the beginning, we designed things around a single inbox, a user being an email. One would sign in with Google, and that's your user account. And the more we worked with larger teams, the more we realized the concept of a user is very different in our case. User has 20 plus emails. And so reconfiguring the system around how do you architect a multi-tenant system when you're working with a sales team that's dealing with a whole lot of emails and a whole lot of outbound is very different to how you would architect, for example, a consumer AI system. So interesting learnings like that have been very specific to sales teams. And then also the human likeness of replies. So for example, if I send you an email, Vishesh, and you reply within however long it takes the LLM to complete its process, our agents to complete the process, you reply in 30 seconds, exactly 30 seconds every time, I feel like I'm facing a bot. And so we've had to engineer ways around of what does a human response look like? We pick a random time frame between 2 and 5 minutes, 2 and 7 minutes, and we respond within that time frame. So emails come through more randomly, both a better experience for the end user as well as for deliverability metrics. So there have been some very interesting edge cases that have come up specific to deliverability and to email sales that it doesn't even apply to if you did outbound via LinkedIn or cold calling. It would be totally different use cases. So that's been very interesting to see as we built out the product.
And so in your case, are you setting up those domains and inboxes for your customers, or they come in with those domains pre-bought and mail configuration, whatever DNS configuration setup?
We can do both. Yes, we can do both. Some customers will come to us with domains that they use through their company that have been in use for a while. Others come to us without and say, hey, we need to run an outbound sales process from scratch. Maybe we've never done this before. Maybe we have. We can also go and acquire. We have pre-warmed accounts that we're able to give to users so that they don't have to wait the whole process of getting an account up to speed. Pre-warming, once again, is like it helps with deliverability in the sense that it appears, it comes across as a human-like use of email so that we don't have a ton of spam that comes through at a high level. So it'll take months to warm up.
Right, right. And so before you started all this, we've reached, by the way, the random questions. Before you started all this, I heard this word the first time from you. You were slowmadding around the world while working full time. How was that experience, and were there some of the lessons from that experience that you are applying to your founder journey?
I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Yeah, we would move generally every month or two to a new city or a new country. My partner and I, and we absolutely loved it because we were able to concentrate on our work and have high impact in our full-time positions. And it forced us to be very focused in our work from that sense. And then every time we would put the laptop down and we were in a beautiful beach in French Polynesia or in Egypt, we were able to really enjoy our downtime and spend some very good quality time together, as well as visit friends and family across the world and spend quality time with them outside of work. And so because we had that very intense balance of work being very focused and then outside of work having play be very intense as well. It was really rewarding because I think there are a few times where you can spend so much time with family or with my brother and be able to visit people all over the world. So that for us had been very, very special.
Interesting. Yeah, I would really recommend this to people who are young and people who are starting out. Like, would you, given the experience you had, would you recommend this to people who are just starting out?
I think it differs for everyone has a different capacity to travel. It's a very intense way of doing things.
Right.
I would highly recommend that people travel. And for some people, that looks different. Maybe that's 2 weeks of intense travel, being fully off work, and that works for a lot of people. For ourselves, we wanted to do a lot of traveling and we wanted to do it in more of a slow manner. We wanted to spend 2 months in a place and really get to know the people who live there. There's just something that opens up about a place if you spend a prolonged period there rather than a quick 2 days on your vacation. So we were able to make friends in the places that we lived in, and a different side of the place comes out once you're living there for a while. So because of that, we didn't feel rushed in our traveling, and we had sufficient time to focus on work, which was a priority for us as well. We never wanted to skip on our work product or anything like that. And so we were able to get enough time to focus. And for example, for those who work in a 40-hour work week, 8-8-8 rule. So you have 3 8-hour blocks in the day. One is for sleeping, one is for working if you're working a 40-hour week, and the other one is for exploring. And how do you use those 8 hours outside of work? For a lot of people, those are padded on the ends of the day of a couple of hours in the morning and a couple of hours in the evening, both without sunlight usually, where you're just kind of getting ready and winding down from the workday. We really wanted to flip that on its head and say, okay, how can we use that in one big block to really explore a place and maximize our time outside of work? And so throughout those time zone changes, we were able to do that, which was really rewarding, being able to work full time and to use our time to explore fully at the same time as well.
And so you worked Pacific time across the globe, right? So your
That's right.
work timings were set to a specific time zone. How
That's
hard
right.
was that?
Very difficult. So my commitment had always been I will give my utmost work product, and that's really important to me for no matter what time it takes and no matter what time of the day. And so I committed to a PST time zone, and that meant that in some places I was waking up at 2 in the morning in Australia and Japan, and sometimes I was working well into the evening in Europe or South Africa. And each of them have their perks. I mean, sometimes it's pretty difficult to reload to sleep at random hours of the day. But I don't regret any of that. I think it's as long as you're well rested and you follow that 8-8-8 rule, then I feel like one can be very productive and still explore and be well rested all at the same time. And so, for anyone who's looking to do that, I'd highly encourage it. For those who are working 40-hour work weeks and want to explore, it's almost for us was really beneficial because we were able to see so much of the world whilst working full time. So a lot of people have this notion of I'm going to work for a long time and save enough money to eventually free myself up to travel, and that is their retirement plan. For us, we were very lucky because our retirement plan was happening at the same time that we were working. So we were able to effectively live a very long retirement and a long work at the same time, which for us was rewarding.
Yeah, it's better to do it while your knees are healthy.
Yeah.
And so you wouldn't recommend this to a founder though?
I think it's pretty difficult to do if you're a founder. I think a founder's got to be really focused on what you're building. I keep caveating if you're in a 40-hour work week and that works well for you and you can be highly focused on your work, then that's a great way of doing things. We're now based in California, moved out to San Francisco, like I said, to start Proxis. And so it's much difficult to balance that in a founder life where really your whole being is purpose towards this entity, which is this company is your baby and you're looking after that. So
Right.
much more difficult in that sense.
Right.
And that's not to say one shouldn't like take breaks as well. I think that's important in the founder life in terms of not burning out and just being able to give oneself time to rest and recuperate. I think that's undervalued and highly encourage founders to take that. But it is, yeah, it's much more than a 40-hour work week. I can tell you that.
Makes sense. We're going to switch gears. What part of managing your personal brand or network do you dread most? As a founder, you do have to put in the effort.
Do I dread most?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. A lot of founders have to become almost LinkedIn influencers. Excuse me, I think is the term, and really proponents of your own brand and in turn your company's brand, and you've got to be your biggest seller and your biggest proponent. And I very much resonate with that. And so, what we aim to do is to really put ourselves out there so that we're known. A lot of inbound has come from that. I think if you're not vocal about your own brand and not vocal about your own company, then even if you have a stellar product, no one's going to know about you. So you are your own marketing team, and we are. And that's been really difficult because I've never had to do that before. You always worked for companies who've either had their own marketing team or have different sales or distribution go-to-market mechanisms. And so to build our own go-to-market from scratch has been pretty difficult to learn their LinkedIn algorithm and what's working well on LinkedIn is not necessarily working well on X, Hacker News forums, etc. So there are all these hacks and so grateful to the YC community for being able to share those learnings with each other and to grow almost as one person in the community learns something, they're able to share it with others. Shout out to some of the other communities in San Francisco. The founder-led sales community is a great one where sort of sales teams come together and discuss what's been working for them and what hasn't. And I think there's a large overlap between personal branding and sales/marketing. A lot of inbound has come just from what would be ordinarily defined as a personal branding side of things.
Right. So from those two communities, are there any specific lessons that you want to share?
Yeah, there is. The biggest overarching lesson and takeaway is that sales is a personalized process. And I mean, I can tell you now, my LinkedIn inbox feels like an infomercial. It feels so stale and unpersonalized. What's important for me is the biggest part of your sales process is defining your ICP and reaching out to the right people. And for so many people, they try and automate that to get the large scale outbound that if I reach out to 100,000 people, surely someone will say yes. And really what we found is take the time to take that 100,000 people down to a group of 20 to 100 really solid leads that you know. And maybe it's referrals or people that you found or friends of friends. And once you have those really solid leads, it's a much more personalized approach. And you just, the biggest thing is you're selling a solution to people who have a problem. So if you're not approaching the people with the problem, then, well, that's the first issue. So really being very targeted around your ICP has been a huge learning over the past year for us. And it's come up in those communities as well as personalized approach to your ICP.
There is a school of thought where I've spoken to a few founders and they believe, which also kind of makes sense, and would love to know what your take is on that, which is they spend a lot of time prospecting, but the message is not personalized. It is, speaking to that pain. And because they've spent time on prospecting, they have a high degree of confidence that pain will resonate with them. So they spend more time on prospecting rather than personalization. What do you think about that?
Totally, that resonates. I think it depends on your capacity. I would do both. I would spend a lot of time on prospecting, but I also wouldn't. Once you've put a lot of effort into that prospecting and you're highly confident on those users, I say it's very worth personalizing that. If you've got that list down to 20 really high impact people, yeah, I would definitely reach out in a personalized way. Or even at that stage, warm introductions are much more effective if I can reach out to someone, even if it's a very loose connection and get that warm introduction. If I know that person has the problem, it's well worth my time to reach out through a warm route. If you would try to scale that when you hadn't done effective prospecting, that's just completely onerous. I can't do that for thousands of people. So once you've really identified those with a burning problem, then that's fantastic. But a lot of that is very difficult in the early stages where in our previous ideas as well at Proxis, we were still like identifying the problem, and that's the PMF journey really. And so really defining your ICP is also a part of like defining the problem set and knowing that in a really good way, which is it's a great exercise of who are the people who like have this burning problem. Can we confirm that, and then do they resonate with it? Are they replying with that? And sometimes you can have the best sales process and really the problem is just not really there. And so it's not that you have a bad sales process, it's just feedback from the market. And so that's effective as well.
What's the one workflow in your GTM that constantly breaks or gets ignored?
One workflow in our GTM that constantly breaks. It's hard to say. I think one thing that we always say we need to lean into more is more of the warm introductions route, the referrals, which we do, but we can always do more of. And then the other thing is being even more vocal or targeted on our personal branding and social media profiles. And that we found the more you let people into your lives effectively, instead of giving the latest AI hot takes, the more you're able to open up about your founder journey or sort of the company updates. That's been really helpful in developing sort of trust in that personal brand. And that's something that we continue to focus on.
Makes sense. Makes sense. How do you remember which messages matter versus what's noise in your own inbox?
I think that's just going through it and kind of a case by case basis. I get a lot of noise personally, but I understand that, and it's all learning as well of what good and bad sales techniques are. And anytime I see a very out there and creative technique, maybe it's someone who just says, "Hey, I'm in San Francisco. Here's a picture of us. We just landed, and we'd love to meet up." It's something that's just a bit different. Love just reaching out to those, even if the answer is, "I'm not in town at the moment, but hey, that was a great message. I appreciate it." So yeah, definitely my inbox can be quite entertaining at times. But yeah, we also have ways of keeping track of who's moving through the funnel, at what stages they are, just so we don't drop the ball on any of those, because those inboxes can become quite cluttered.
Makes sense. What's your favorite book, or what would you recommend to other founders? A book you would recommend to other founders?
So a book that was very helpful for us that we were actually given on our first weekend retreat at YC, and this is a plug to Peter, was the founder-led sales, his founder-led sales book. That's been great. That's similar to the founder-led sales, the same group that I alluded to earlier. Just very helpful in terms of like lessons learned and how to come across in a just a person really, come across in a human like and just a personable way in terms of our sales, and they give that to every founder at the start of the batch, because every founder needs to learn how to do sales. It's just part and parcel of being a founder. And so a lot of folks come in, especially to the YC community, incredibly technical and have to learn to sell. And that's something that can be easily learned, but comes with a lot rejection and emotional turmoil along the way. So having that guide there as a founder-led sales book of someone who's been through the motions a lot has been fantastic. And then branching off from that, it started as a book, which is inherently static. But the founder-led sales community has been really good in terms of building on learnings from that already. So folks share those learnings, and it's almost like an extension of that book over time.
So the book is called The Founding Sales.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's interesting as well because writing a book is a form of go-to-market in its own sense as well. So it's sort of a meta question. There are a couple of other YC founders who have also written their own book, which has proved very useful in terms of their own go-to-market, where folks will purchase the book and you have it, a physical book sitting on the dining room table or coffee table, and it's a constant reminder of that person and their company. So it's a very interesting go-to-market tactic, and obviously requires a lot more effort than any LinkedIn post would, but it's a very effective form, especially in the physical form of it.
Yeah, that's true. I've been mulling over that as well. Do I have a book in me? That's the question. Are you thinking of writing one?
I would love to write a book. I don't know when that timeline would be. I would love to write one that's sort of less go-to-market focused and, well, not less of a, the purpose of writing the book is not for go-to-market. The purpose is to teach people the lessons that I've learned along the way on the founder. So I think that's the kind of book that I'd like to write. But we have a lot on our plate at the moment, so that'll probably come with time.
What advice would you give? Last question. What advice would you give to the Liam from 2 pivots ago?
Ship fast, ship quickly. The more we shipped, the more we learned. And the quicker you ship, the quicker that feedback cycle is. And the other things is, and YC says this from the outset, and something we've been doing from the start, is chat to customers regularly. Just really understand how they're using your product. And maybe that's passively you're looking at post-log reports or LLM traces, really understanding how people are using your product and what's useful to them and what's not. Sometimes even raging about a product requires effort. And so raging feedback is also can be great feedback, but requires effort for it to come across. So we found that sort of passively monitoring people is a fantastic way of getting to that. But that can't be understated how the value of actually reaching out and having in-depth conversations with those users really shortens the feedback loop there in terms of the cycles to understand where you are on the PMF journey.
Right. Good advice. Good advice. Where can people follow you? How can people find more about Proxis and sign up?
So you can find us at proxis.ai, and we have a contact form there. If you want to get a hold of us, you can find me on LinkedIn and X, Liam Collins, and feel free to DM me anytime.
Well, thanks for joining me on the podcast. It was fun having you.
It's been a pleasure, Vishesh. Thank you.
If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. See you in the next episode.